So today the topic is accessibility from scratch, design and development, best practices. So the goal of this overall webinar series is to increase familiarity with web accessibility. What is it? Why does it matter? Who's it apply to? Make sure you understand the compliance landscape. So we've got a lot of laws in place. The ADA in the US, both Title III and Title II. Canada, we've got the ACA, the AODA. In Europe, we have the EAA. Should probably be giving the descriptions. The European Accessibility Act, Accessibility for Ontarians Act, or with Disabilities Act. So anyway, there's a lot of different laws. So making sure folks understand which laws apply to them, and then demonstrating different paths to use RAMP, use our services in order to upgrade your accessibility across your whole portfolio and with the new websites you're building, and give this an opportunity to bring on new clients. And then most importantly, probably here is we want to help you to add an additional revenue stream for your agency. So Accessible Web is set up to help you build a new revenue channel. There is a ton of work. The entire web needs to be upgraded to be accessible. So there's a ton of work here, and our goal is to help you to do that profitably and bring your clients into compliance. So what we're suggesting here is you can sign up for a RAMP Pro Plus trial on our website. We do 14-day free trials all the time for all of our plans. The RAMP Pro Plus plan is what agencies typically sign up for. It allows you to have 30 websites. You can have unlimited users. It includes support from our team, legal support, a ton of features, really everything you need. And if it's fully loaded, it breaks down to $20 per website. So what we've done is this coupon code here, Agency Webinar 2024, will provide you with an extra month of RAMP. And with that extra month, you should have 6 weeks or so if you add it on to the 14-day trial. So plenty of time to add on, add clients into RAMP, use the tools, follow along with us as we're moving through this webinar series. All right, so here's where we left off last webinar. Is we had a couple of internal action items. One was set up RAMP. So again, go sign up for a 14-day free trial. Feel free to do it now while I'm talking, or at any point. And we've got team members that are able to support you in getting things set up. Invite your agency and team members to RAMP, invite them to the next webinars. And then in RAMP, we have an area called recommended action items. This is where we'd recommend getting started. See if you can make some improvements. You should be able to make some very easy improvements using our automated scanner and the remediation recommendations that come along with it. The next thing is we had a template for sending out a notification to your client. So if you haven't talked to all of your clients about this, it can be a little awkward at first. You probably have a whole portfolio of websites you've built, and maybe none of them are accessible. Hopefully some of them are accessible, but at some point you need to let your clients know that this is the law, this is the real deal, and they need to ideally take some action, or they're going to be at risk of lawsuits in the US, or at the very least, they're not providing great experiences for users with disabilities. So we have a notification template you can send out. Watch the video of the previous webinar, and then our recommendation for all of your clients, at the very least, is to add an accessibility page onto their website and then upgrade them to 100 of 100 score using RAMP. So here's where we're picking up today, is assuming you sent that notification out. Now you've got a bunch of clients that are saying, okay, yeah, like maybe, I don't know, in reality, probably 35% of clients are going to say, yes, we want to move forward with doing accessibility. Thank you, agency, for bringing this to our attention. And so with that group of clients that wants to move forward and is not willfully sticking their head in the sand, ignoring accessibility, I kind of typically put these into 3 rough buckets. And there's a lot of flexibility in how you can approach this, but here's kind of 3 top level concepts. So option 1 is if they have any website in a lower budget. The website could be new, it could be older. Offer them accessibility upgrades over time. So you can package it up to fit their budget and get started with hitting that accessibility statement and the 100 of 100 automated score. And then, start chipping away at manual auditing over time. So you could package this up at 2 hours a month, 4 hours a month, really all depends on their budget threshold. But just at least start making progress and get them in a defensible position, get them thinking about this as a real requirement they need to be working on. Option 2, let's say you have a new website you just built. Super awkward, right? You built this awesome website. Now you got to go back to the client and, hey, we got to do accessibility, it turns out. What we'd suggest here is, assuming they love the design, they love the content, there was a ton of time that went into discovery and all the conversations that resulted in this amazing new website that you built. What we'd recommend here is skip all the discovery, and you don't need to retheme. You might need to make some small adjustments, but do a retheme. So create a new WordPress theme, match the existing designs as much as possible to where they currently are. There might be some issues you need to slightly change, but use an accessible theme. Maybe it's a starter theme that's accessible out of the box. Retheme the website, keep the site architecture the way it is, and go through and retool the website, keeping it as true to the current place it is as possible. So this eliminates all the discovery calls, all the reimagining what their website and brand is. So hopefully this option can come in at 33%, maybe a third of a typical website build, because there's not a ton of client communication. You're just kind of rebuilding to be accessible. Option 3, with an older website, use this as an opportunity to build a new website, right? This is just one more reason. Hey, your website's 5 years old. It's probably time to rebuild it anyway. For the cost of an accessibility audit and upgrades and everything, maybe it makes sense for us to just rebuild your website, client. So I'm going to get into options 2 and 3 basically today. And the big things with building a website to be accessible from scratch is you need to shift left. Early is always best. So do not fall into the pitfall of thinking this is a QA step and that you're going to build a website and then, okay, it's time to do the accessibility. We see that all the time. It's painful. What happens then is you've built the whole website and then you start thinking about accessibility. And now you've got to go rethink all these, designs, foundational decisions that were made. You've got to redo everything. And your client's mad, the budget's smoked, and it ends up being just this rush job of doing the bare minimum. So think about this early. And then ideally, if you think about it early as well, you can start to work this accessibility into those repeatable and reusable pieces, your base theme, your plugin library that you use, the blocks that you use in your block editor. So if you do this early, before you do all the client customizations, it allows you to be thoughtful and work the accessibility into the different foundational pieces that you're using to build all of your websites, so the next website is going to be more efficient. Doing it early also reinforces for your team, for your client, that this is something everyone needs to be thinking about. It's not just a one-off thing. We're not going to launch and have it be accessible and we're going to forget about accessibility forever. This isn't going away. So doing it early reinforces this needs to be something everyone's thinking about. It's part of the process. It's forever. Doing it early results in better final products, right? Think about an old building where you're trying to, historic building, you're trying to figure out how to make it accessible, and you're putting wonky ramps out front and you're bolting an elevator on the outside. Maybe there's a lift inside. The floors don't match. You've got all these ramps inside. The bathrooms are too narrow. If you build it from scratch to be accessible, it's just going to be better. And then on the same vein, better accessibility means better UX for everyone. So this is just a way to improve the website. It's not just for people with disabilities. By following WCAG and being thoughtful as you build, it's going to provide a better experience for every user. All right, so there's two real options when you are quoting websites, when you are building a new website. This is how we approach it. And again, there's probably some other ways to approach, but option A that I would definitely recommend is always build new websites from today on that include accessibility best practices. So this protects you as an agency. You need to stop producing websites that are not accessible, right? You're basically just putting something out into the world for your client that's non-compliant. Like, you know, a car dealership can't, a car manufacturer can't sell a car without seatbelts. You shouldn't be selling a website with no accessibility. So at least build a website. I'll get into that in a second, but do basic accessibility. I'll get into what that means. It's the same as doing basic SEO, installing Google Analytics. You don't have to go whole hog and set up all their conversions and their goals or write out thoughtful keyword research, title tags, and meta descriptions, but you're at least probably putting Yoast on. You're creating a sitemap.xml. Do the basics for accessibility as well. This eliminates the why didn't you build my website to be accessible down the road. You can say, hey, we did. You just didn't opt in for the full package. And this also opens the door to future upsells because there is visibility. Your client is thinking about accessibility. There's different flags, there's different moments in the conversation that even if they don't want to say yes, they at least are thinking about it and have to actively say no to a full accessibility implementation. So we have templates that are available to our Ramp Pro Plus clients that include proposal and legal language to help with both of these two options I'm going to go over. So if you're going to offer just basic accessibility, what we'd recommend is including an accessibility page on every website, creating a statement, an accessibility statement on that page. It can be simple or as complex as your client and you decide on, but make sure there's an accessibility page and make sure there's a feedback mechanism where users that are experiencing barriers can report that barrier and request an accommodation. And then we'd also recommend using Ramp and our Accessible Web Helper Chrome extension to monitor the website during the build. If you're thinking about accessibility and keeping an eye on things, an automated score while you're building. If you're working an automated 100 of 100 score with no errors from an automated standpoint into your definition of done, you can be able to launch a website that at launch date in Ramp shows 100 of 100 automated score, 0 errors, puts you in a very, very defensible position. And if you use our tools throughout the build process, it doesn't add too much overhead. It's pretty much like it's going to be a very incremental increase in the costs on your end, and now you've covered yourself. Option B is full WCAG conformance and ADA compliance. So this is what I would recommend. This is what's going to actually help your clients be compliant, prevent ADA lawsuits. The challenge you're probably going to run into is clients don't want to pay for it, and it does it increases the budget here. There is a lot of additional work above a 100 of 100 automated score. So just to remind folks, if you weren't on the previous call, if you're not aware, automated scanners can catch about 35% of WCAG success criteria. That number is pretty widely ranging depending on who you talk to, but it's about 35% of accessibility issues or success criteria. The other 65% need to be manually audited. And so once you get into manual auditing, you need people putting eyes on and doing testing to make sure a site's accessible. So in order to be compliant with any one of these laws, you need to be WCAG conforming, AA conforming in most cases. And in order to be WCAG AA conforming, you need to do manual audits. So in order to be compliant, there's going to be additional audit work. There's going to be additional issues that get uncovered during those audits that need to be remediated. We want to help you do that as efficiently as possible, but even in a best case scenario, you're probably adding potentially 10 to 15%, more towards 15% as you're getting started. So you're probably going to want to charge for that. I'd say you definitely want to charge for that, and you might run into clients not wanting to pay for that. So what we recommend is have discussions during discovery, make sure clients understand ADA compliance, WCAG conformance, have that baseline of, we'll put accessibility with 100 of 100 score on every website, but pitch them on compliance. And we typically recommend adding a percentage of overall budget as that line item. It can be done like clearly on the template. This is your 15% accessibility charge, or you can kind of do the calculations and back end and add it, whatever makes sense for how you do your deals. We'd also recommend finding friendly clients to work with on your first couple projects. This is going to be a lift as your team gets used to it. So probably don't, come out swinging for a client, trying to do this on a client you've never worked with before, because it might be difficult. So find a friendly client, and then make sure when your proposal documents include full WCAG conformance and ADA compliance, that it's clear when people accept or decline this. You want to have a paper trail if your clients decline ADA compliance, so that when they get sued, you have the proposal and you can say, hey, client, look, you declined this at the time, we offered it, but hopefully with that baseline automated score that we discussed in option A, you're at least in a spot where you can layer on some additional work and help them solve their lawsuit issue. So the deliverables here, this is kind of what we're getting into with this presentation, is how to deliver option B. Option A is super simple. Just scan the website with RAMP, show 100 of 100 score. This is a little bit more, this is more complicated. So what we'd recommend here is use RAMP to monitor the website, still include the accessibility page, always include an accessibility page. And then complete some audits at key stages and use the Accessible Web Helper Chrome extension. So I'm going to get into that in these next slides, how to actually do this. All right, so you're starting a new project. You're just looking at how your agency's building websites overall. First thing you need to think about is like the foundational decisions you're making in how you're building websites. So you want to make sure you're using a CMS that includes theming flexibility. There's a lot of like DIY website builders. I don't want to throw any specific ones under the bus, but some of these like, build your website in 5 minutes using AI or whatnot, right? Or a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of platforms out there that don't provide really flexible theming abilities. So you don't want to choose a platform that's not going to allow you to put transcripts on a video, or that's not going to allow you to use ARIA, or that's not going to allow you to, change your tab order. So choose the right CMS. All the major ones with like, theming abilities are great options. And then choose the right starter theme, or include accessibility into your agency starter theme. So if you're doing custom designs, a lot of agencies are, you have your base theme, your team works with it every day on every build. Start rolling in the accessibility into that theme. And that way you're building on your accessibility and starting with a better foundation every time. If you're going out to a theme marketplace, do your research. Make sure that theme that you're choosing up front is going to be accessible. Same thing with the page builder. Do some page builder research. Like there's some that are absolutely awful. Read around on the forums. See if they have an accessibility page. See what level of accessibility support they have. Same with apps and plugins. And then you should also review your client's brand guidelines. Have some conversations with them. Like maybe they have inaccessible color palettes. Or there's just some glaring issues that you're going to need to adjust. And usually you can adjust colors a little bit to make them accessible, but make sure they're going to be comfortable with changing designs, changing the different elements that they want to see on the website so that they can be accessible. Make sure you're aware that you are responsible, the client is responsible for inaccessible third-party tools and content. So clients often fall into this pitfall of, well, it's third party, doesn't matter, right? It's the app's problem. I'm using such and such review app on my Shopify site. It's inaccessible. I can't do anything about it. It's not my problem. It is your problem as a website owner. So make sure you're making the right decisions there. And then what you can do as you're doing this research is ask for a VPAT. A VPAT stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. It is a standard report. We build them or we complete them all the time and help our clients in kind of the SaaS and product space, kind of a different business from agencies, but we work with clients all the time to build accessibility conformance reports in the VPAT format. So if you ask for an ACR or a VPAT, if the client can, if the vendor can provide that to you, that typically means that they have a pretty accessible platform. And obviously you want to review the ACR to make sure it's showing conformance support. But if you ask for a VPAT and they can provide you with one, review that, and that's a pretty good sign they're at least thinking about accessibility. All right, next thing is designs. So always do an accessibility design of your files prior to client reviews. Many of the typical popular design platforms, Adobe XD, Figma especially, there's a variety of different accessibility tools built into them to help support this. Accessible Web has our Figma annotation kit that we offer to our agency clients on the Ramp Pro Plus plan. And we also can have our accessibility specialist that we assign to your account help you review your client's designs or your designs for your client for accessibility issues. And when you do accessibility reviews on designs, don't just look at what's in front of you, what needs to be changed from a design standpoint, but also try to identify what the pattern is, what ARIA design pattern might apply, and make some forward-looking recommendations to your customers in terms of to your developers in terms of how they should be coding these designs. So audit the designs, find the failures, and then also provide recommendations on taking those designs into code. The next step is doing a template or a component audit. This is always super important. What you want to do here is before you've built out the whole site, build a header and a footer maybe on your website, and add all the components or build out the various templates for your e-commerce site, your homepage, your collections, cart, checkout, my account, store locator. Build out the templates or build a page of all your components. Do a manual audit at that step. Don't wait until the whole site's been built out with content on top of it. You can also do an audit of your base theme. If you have just a wireframe level theme that you're using to build everything, audit that and fix all the issues that come out of that audit so that you're starting with a really strong foundation. So definitely do an audit early, remediate all the issues that come up. Again, you can provide forward-looking guidance to the team that's going to be taking those templates and components and populating them with content. But yeah, do an early audit before you've built out the broader website of all the different developed, coded elements that are going to make up that website. Then from there, you have a really solid, accessible coded framework now. Build out the pages and the content, import the products onto your e-commerce site. When you're doing this, your theme code level accessibility should be in good shape from the previous two steps. Your design should be in good shape, but make sure your content team and your clients, they're often helping with content. Give them the Accessible Web Helper Chrome extension and make sure they're scanning each page as they create them. Use that Chrome extension to put accessibility at their fingertips and work this into the definition of done. As they're adding content, if they find errors, they can be part of your QA team, right? So if they find errors, if they can't fix them within the Chrome extension, they can create tasks in Ramp that get sent to your website in Ramp so that your developers can go and fix them. So make sure that the content team is actively using the Chrome extension to detect errors and fix them as they build out content. And then what we would recommend is a final WCAG audit. So this is the QA step. There's still an audit at the QA step, but if we've done the work properly in design, in development, in content, these audits here don't uncover a ton of issues, and we may uncover some issues. That's the point of QA. but it's not a train wreck. It's not this whole go back and have to rebuild a bunch of stuff. You're going to find some issues for sure, but the real opportunity here is to find the final issues that might still be lingering. There shouldn't be a ton of issues, fix those issues. And then we also recommend doing UX testing with users with disabilities and assistive technology. And we've got a team here that can help do that. But here it's more UX, right? If you do UX testing, assistive technology testing, at this final stage, you'll find that your assistive technology testing is tending to round out the corners, provide better experiences, instead of having assistive technology testing where your testers are hitting barrier after barrier and it's just a frustrating experience. All right, so we offer an accessible web certification. This comes up all the time. We do have a certification if you follow our process, if you work with our team on that Ramp Pro Plus plan. We can provide you with certification statements, certification letters at the end. We can make this really easy for you. And at the end, you can have documentation for your client that they can use to keep them in a defensible position that says this website launched after completing all these various steps. So typically we require 100 of 100 automated score. We require that we've done a manual audit at these various stages and that you've remediated all the issues. We require UX testing, and then we'll write this certification letter at the end. And we also have a badge and a certification statement we can put on your client's website accessibility page. All right, so the big thing here is track time, price accordingly, and plan for improvement. So make sure you're tracking accessibility time. An agency like lives or dies by billable hours. So try to put an accessibility bucket in here. Keep the accessibility time tracked separately. You might lose your shirt on the first project or two, right? So this is where we'd recommend doing like 15% on your first project, 15% of budget for accessibility. See how that plays out. And then adjust accordingly. Your team will get better at this over time. This is just like in the early 2010s when we were all trying to figure out how to build mobile websites. It was difficult. There were a lot of budgets getting blown. There was a lot of janky mobile experiences being created, but we all figured it out. And now we just do it as kind of matter of fact. So, set a budget, try to prepare your ownership or your bosses or whatever that, hey, we might miss this budget. Try to find a client that's friendly and going to be supportive as you move through this, that can tolerate some missteps or changes in process as needed. But if you track this and you improve on it, you are going to figure this out, and it is going to become something you can do very profitably, especially using our tools and with our support. All right, so the next webinars, I totally blew the time on this. Hopefully this has been valuable. But the next webinars we are doing are going to be offering accessibility as a service. So this is kind of those clients that I mentioned earlier that might not want a free rebuild or a full rebuild or a theme rebuild. How do you offer this on an ongoing basis? So that's coming up next Thursday. And then on the 19th, we're going to be doing long-term accessibility strategies to help you really make sure your clients are set up, that you're set up in the long term. So thank you. I'm going to stop sharing here and open it up for questions.